When I first read Carrie, I was the same age as our protagonist. And one of the first things that I noticed was just how accurate King's depiction of bullying was, especially the ostracizing and the cruelty of being visibly different. Now, for me, not the tampon scene, thank God, but the isolation, the way a room goes quiet when you walk in, King nailed it. And then in 1980, just 6 years later, King published Firestarter. And on the surface, it's the same story. A young girl with psychic powers experiences social isolation, followed by apocalyptic destruction. Critics noticed, but so did King. He actually stopped writing Firestarter partway because he was terrified he was just rewriting Carrie. Now, I don't think Firestarter is a copy. To me, it feels more like a rebuttal. And it's because King took Carrie White's tragedy and flipped it. Instead of a parent who loathed her, she had a father who loved her. What if Carrie White didn't become the monster of Chamberlain, Maine? The answer is what makes Firestarter so unsettling, because Charlie McGee has everything Carrie didn't, and she still ends up standing in the ashes. Let's start with what everyone sees. Two young girls, two sets of psychic powers, two endings in fire. Now, Carrie White's telekinesis, it allows her to move objects with her mind. Charlie McGee's pyrokinesis means she can start fires with hers. Both powers emerge during adolescence, tied explicitly to the onset of puberty. Carrie's telekinesis fully manifests with her first period. And then in Firestarter, King writes that Charlie might light fires in her sleep as part of her own strange puberty, a fiery counterpart of the nocturnal seminal emissions most teenage boys experience. Both books also end in destruction. Carrie levels Chamberlain, Maine, including her high school, the town center, and she also leaves over 400 dead bodies in her wake. Charlie incinerates the shop's entire Virginia facility, literally melting bullets midair and leaving nothing but ash. Even the poor horses, they didn't stand a chance. And both girls are isolated. Carrie endures relentless bullying and lives under the boot of Margaret White's religious fanaticism. Charlie, meanwhile, she can't form friendships because her parents keep her off the grid, running from something she's too young to understand. On paper, they're the same story. But between Carrie in 1974 and Firestarter in 1980, America changed, and with it, the world King was writing in. When Carrie came out, Watergate had just exploded. Nixon would resign that August. But the paranoia was still personal, with a fear that authority figures in your life, they just couldn't be trusted. In Carrie, the monsters are all individuals. Margaret, the religious zealot mother. Chris and Billy, they're the sadistic bullies who won't stop until Carrie is destroyed. The horror is intimate and interpersonal. By 1980, the paranoia had metastasized. The Pentagon Papers had revealed systematic government lying about Vietnam. The Church Committee had exposed MKUltra, the CIA's actual program experimenting on American citizens with LSD, trying to unlock mind control. The enemy wasn't your mother anymore. It was invisible, institutional, and everywhere. Firestarter, it's not about bullies. It's about the shop, a shadow government agency conducting illegal human experimentation, kidnapping children, and weaponizing human potential. In other words, King's monster evolved. In 6 years, he went from Margaret White locking her daughter in a closet to a covert CIA stand-in turning children into weapons of war. And that shift changes everything about how these stories work. But the parallels and the cultural context only reveal what the books appear to be from the outside. The real difference is in what each girl has or doesn't have when the world comes for her. If you boil it down, the core inversion between the two novels is love withheld and love given. Carrie White has no one. Margaret White sees her daughter as proof of her own sin, the product of a sexual encounter she views as demonic. She beats Carrie, locks her in a closet to pray, and tells her menstruation is God's punishment. She's the novel's primary antagonist. Yes, Chris Hargensen dumps the blood, but Margaret is the one who shaped Carrie's entire existence. She's the reason Carrie has no language for her own body and no framework for her own power. When Margaret tries to kill Carrie, calling her a witch, it's the culmination of a lifetime of abuse. Then at school, Carrie is prey. Sue Snell, she pities Carrie, but only after originally tormenting her. And Mrs. Jardenson, she tries to help, but Carrie moves through the world alone, unloved, and unprotected. She gets no relief. There's no escape for her. When the pig's blood falls at prom, Carrie's destruction is revenge. Years of abuse, bullying, and isolation all detonating in one devastating act. The horror is that we understand it. We don't condone it, but we get it. Carrie was tortured until she broke. The horror in Carrie is personal. It's the people who should protect you destroying you instead. Firestarter, it flips that. Charlie McGee has everything Carrie didn't. Andy McGee loves his daughter, and not performatively or conditionally. He loves her with the kind of fierce, protective desperation that defines parenthood. He uses his own psychic ability to keep them safe, even though he doesn't want to use the push. He sacrifices normalcy, stability, and safety to give Charlie a childhood that isn't defined by laboratories and needles. But it doesn't matter, because the horror of Firestarter isn't that Charlie breaks. It's that she's already broken from the start. But it's not by cruelty. It's by design. She was born to be a weapon. The shop created her parents' power with Lot 6, knowing they might have children, and those children might inherit amplified abilities. Charlie isn't damaged goods. She's the product working exactly as intended. And the shop is the real monster. It's the bureaucracy with unlimited funding, no oversight, and the explicit goal of turning human beings into weapons. Captain Hollister, he's just the middle manager. And John Rainbeard, he's just a tool. It was right here I knew. I was calling him Rainbeard. And yet, I still kept calling him Rainbeard. The mind works in mysterious ways. And Rainbeard is the one area I felt missing from Carrie. He's a really interesting and complex antagonist. He's what Margaret White could have been if she was fleshed out a bit more. See, Rainbeard, he's a Vietnam vet with severe PTSD. He becomes obsessed with Charlie, but not because he hates her. It's because he wants to kill her and take her fire with him into the other world. He's damaged in a way that makes him comprehensible, without becoming entirely sympathetic. But even Rainbird is just a symptom. The shop is the true disease. When Charlie unleashes her power at the end, it's through self-defense. Her mother's already dead. Her father's been murdered in front of her. And she has no choice. But the outcome is the same in both novels. They both end in ash, bodies, and destruction. King's thesis here is brutal. Love couldn't save Carrie because she never had it. But love can't save Charlie either, because some systems are bigger than love. Carrie's ending is cathartic in a terrible way. We don't want the town to burn, but we understand why it does. Carrie is punishing the world that punished her. There's a grim satisfaction in it, not because we're sadistic, although some of you may be, but because we've been conditioned to believe that bullies get what's coming to them. They get their comeuppance. Carrie's rampage feels like justice, even though it's slaughter. King lets us sit with that discomfort. We sided with a monster. So what does that say about us? Firestarter, meanwhile, it doesn't offer catharsis. Charlie burns the shop to the ground, and we're rooting for her. But there's not the same level of satisfaction because the shop isn't one facility. It's a symptom of a government apparatus that'll just rebuild and rebrand and then start again somewhere else with a different acronym. Charlie wins the battle, but she's 8 years old. She's orphaned and traumatized, and she's now the single most dangerous person in America. She'll never be safe, and the government will never stop hunting her. I think the message, at least on a simplistic level, is that personal evil can be destroyed. Institutional evil, it regenerates endlessly. King wrote Carrie to explore what happens when someone with power is tortured until they snap. And then a few years later, he wrote Firestarter to explore what happens when someone with power is loved, and yet hunted anyway. Both girls end up standing in the ashes, but it's not by their own choosing. Firestarter might not be Carrie's true sequel, but it is Carrie's nightmare. It's the version where love should have saved her, but the world was already burning. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, family, and even your enemies. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because every subscriber inches me one step closer to taking over the galaxies. Until next time, take care, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.